we go. Hi, this is Paul Casey, the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame educational video series. Today, we're celebrating greatness with the women of Kenpo. We are honored to have Miss Barbara White, Mrs. Patty Dye, and Kellie Foster, three of our Hall of Fame members. We're going to be talking about Kenpo, principles, concepts, motion, and also from women's perspective, what it's like to train, teach, and educate people in Kenpo, especially young women, learning to be champions on the mat and also being champions in life. So let's say hello to everybody. Let's start off with Miss Barbara White. Hello, Barbara. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you for having us on.
Well, it's great to have you. It's exciting that you're a part of this. We're going to go with somebody else right now. Hello, Kellie Foster. How you doing,
Hi.
honey?
Good. How are you? Thank
Say
you
hello
for
to
having
everybody.
me. Hi, guys. Thank you for being on with us.
Exciting. And then we're going to go over to Patty.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
It's good to have you. Let's start with you, Patty. Tell us about your Kenpo journey. Give us a little bit of background. We'd love to hear about that.
All right. I started in 1972. I happen to know this guy who was a best friend of mine. You might know him, Paul Dye. And he was taking lessons and had just begun his training at one of the nearby colleges that I attended. And he was so passionate about this new thing he was learning, and he invited me to come to see what it's all about. So I went and I watched what was going on at the college, and then I was invited to go to Mr. Parker's Glendora studio, which was run by Dave Hebler and Jim Thompson. And eventually I ended up training there in 1972, and I trained for a while until school and college and work ended up taking a lot of my time, and I didn't have as much time to train, so I trained when I could, and then finished getting my degrees and continued training, and here I still am, married Paul. We raised children and continued the Kenpo journey together, and we're still doing that 46 years later.
Thank you so much. Wow, congratulations. That's beautiful. Thank you, Patty. We welcome you here to the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame educational video series. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Let's go over and say hello to Kellie Foster. Kellie, tell us about your Kenpo journey.
Oh, wow. Well, I started at the age of 10. My mom actually put me in it because at the time my sister had cancer and she wanted me to do something with my free time. So I joined a little studio in Lake Arrowhead, California, where a guy named Ewan Kwok was teaching at the time. And then a few years later, Mr. Speakman moved into our area and he took over as the head instructor. So that's where I ended up training until about 18 years old. And then I moved down the mountain to a little town close to Covina, where I ended up training under Mr. Dye, and I've been with him now for 21 years. So it's been a great journey.
Unbelievable. 21 years. How's that experience been?
Oh, it's awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better instructor. So he has definitely made me the person I am today. So
well, thank you for being here, and I appreciate your spending your quality time, and maybe we'll get some more information out of you on this, and we look forward to your answers. And by the way, congratulations of being a part of the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame. You were inducted last year, and you were a breath of fresh air, you and Patty, when you came up there. It was very nice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and thank you for having the Hall of Fame.
You're welcome. Let's go to Miss Barbara White. Barbara White, one of my favorite people, a true leader in Kenpo. Her accomplishments are only known because of her actions. She is so quiet. She doesn't speak. She lets her actions be the voice for what she does. And so many people don't miss that. They see it very carefully. So Barbara, welcome to the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame educational video. We are so happy you could be here today. Please tell us about your journey.
Well, it began when I was dropping some clothes off at the dry cleaner in 1991, and next door to the dry cleaner happened to be a karate studio. And I went into the studio and did probably the only impulsive move I've ever made in my entire life is I immediately signed up on the spot, no questions asked, really didn't have any idea what I was getting into. Started taking the first class or two, and I absolutely fell in love with karate. It was not Kempo at the time. It was a Japanese system at that time. I devoured everything I could possibly read about martial arts, everything. It was just something that I couldn't wake up the next morning without thinking about. So I began in 1991. Along the course of the way of my training, I managed to burn through about 4 schools or so in 5 years. And they closed down, and as schools do, and ended up in about 1996 or so at our studio. And it's been, I think it was fate that brought me there. It's just been a blessing ever since. But I had been in training for about probably 6 years, 5, 6 years, and somehow found ours, which was, as I said, an absolute blessing that has enriched my life more than I could have ever imagined. Training, I've trained nonstop since 1991. A few glitches on the way as far as circumstances of life, but never stopped training once. So it's just something that it's part of my life.
Before we were talking, you and I privately, and maybe I might be extending, going over the line here, but asking this question. But you told me about what you and Bob talked about during your marriage ceremony, or before that, in preparation. Can you share that with us?
Well, it's about really our relationship. You know, we just, it came about over time. We just respected one another so much. And I can tell you right now, he's so wonderful that not a day goes by in my life where he does not tell me how much he respects me and how much he loves me. And I'll tell you, that is something that I spent the majority of my life not hearing. And I can't tell you more what a gift it is to have him in my life. But to get back to your original question, is I've always had this desire to make a difference in the world myself. You know, I wanted to be a missionary when I was growing up, and Peace Corps and things like that, and they didn't materialize. But when Bob and I were getting married, or before that, we just talked about our common interests and common goals. And I expressed that I just wanted to leave this world having made a difference somehow. And together we decided that as a team, we would do what we could as a husband-wife team to do something to make a difference. And just, you know, God's given us so much grace, and we've been allowed to do a lot of things. And, you know, I don't go a day without having some gratitude to my husband and to the Lord for the circumstances that he has provided me and he's brought me through.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so personal, and it's important that we do share personal moments. Maybe that may inspire others. As you know, you are in the medical profession as a RN. Am I correct?
Yes.
I have great admiration for the nurses. Many times for 11 years, I spent in a hospital with nurses helping my daughter. And they do this tirelessly. They're beautiful people. Their souls are genuine. They care about what they're doing and to help another human being. And it's very wonderful to know somebody like you that can do that. I want to go to another thing. Now I'm going to change a little bit. I'm going to ask you about a topic, and then I'm going to have Patty and Kelly respond to it as well. Because women and young ladies have unique obstacles in their Kempo journey, they may be tempted to quit before they reach their advanced belts. Have you experienced this in your own teaching / training? And if so, how do you and others help them through this?
I have experienced in my personal training, in my Kempo journey, I have experienced the challenges and obstacles that come along the way. As I said, from the get-go, when I began training, I was able to only, because of family circumstances and the situation I was in, maybe come one time a week. That was it, 1 hour a week of Kempo. And, you know, I've kind of thought about that particular topic and situation. And what I'd like to do is really share what's helped me to go through that. And it happens to be the first thing that I teach in a women's self-defense class is acceptance, and accept the situation as it is. And once we have acceptance, we can at that point move on. So what I needed to do is accept that situation, continue training despite the fact that I was there for 1 week. You know, something that I think is really, really important is our attitude and how we look at these situations and the challenges that we all encounter on a daily basis in life, as well as on our Kenpo journey. And there's something that I heard in church just last night, actually, and that is that setbacks can be the source of your strength later on. And I really believe that the challenges that I went through during the beginning, and actually during all the stages of my training, to be honest with you, have given me a source of strength to not quit. And the not quitting is the key point.
How do you do that? How do you inspire somebody else that comes into your life? Well, two examples. One, in your professional life as a nurse, you're going to meet a young woman or an older woman, and they've had a traumatic experience and they're very scared, okay? Or you have a child or a parent that comes into your school and have had a traumatic experience. How do you help them in either case? And does that overlap?
It overlaps. I think the number one thing is you need to have empathy for another person and compassion. And maybe you don't know all the answer. Maybe I don't know all the answers, but hopefully that person that I'm in contact sees in me that I care about him, and develops a trust. You know, I can, just what you were saying earlier, you know, you can say a lot, but I think your actions really depict who you are. And I try to stay true to myself and have integrity and give encouragement and empathy and you know, kind of demonstrate that throughout my journey. I've had injuries. I've had flare-ups with my rheumatoid arthritis. My daughter was very sick, and, you know, as you know, Bob. And I think just the example of continuing on without stopping it is a good example onto itself, but then coupled with compassion and understanding.
Go to Kellie
empathy.
Foster. Kellie, how do you deal with that same issue of having a young woman come into the school and you're going to teach them, and so they don't get frustrated and leave or quit?
Well, I haven't had that much experience yet with this type of situation. We've been pretty fortunate with the women that come in our classes that they just kind of join in and we're able to, you know, start up on the classes right away. I've never really had to deal with that perspective yet. Growing up, I was at karate 5 days a week and tournaments on the weekend, and I had a real supportive family who would drive me. And then as I got older, I was in a relationship with somebody who was in martial arts. So we were, you know, together at karate all the time. And now my husband, he's just been super supportive. And I have a stepdaughter, but when she was younger, she'd come with me to karate, or he would watch her. So the sacrifices of making, you know, on my training, I really haven't had to yet. I haven't experienced that.
Have you had any children that it could be a young boy? You've worked with children, correct?
Yeah, so I have had, so my nephew is autistic, so I have been able to work with him. So I've had those types of challenges, and obviously you have to, you know, teach differently for him, or a little bit slower, or one-on-one would be a better way of doing it, so.
Okay, and dealing with an autistic child, we're seeing that more and more commonly because of either acknowledgement or recognition of the symptoms. I understand that, having a child with special needs. One thing is, a child is never defined by their disability. So that was something I learned. You don't say they're a special needs child. They're a child with special needs. It could be an adult with special needs. And many people have overcome an obstacle like that. Even one of our greatest presidents, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was handicapped because of polio and always in a wheelchair. However, the media always made sure they never presented him in the wheelchair because it was thought it was a sign of weakness. Actually, I think it's a sign of greatness that he would try to overcome that and lead by example. So that is why it's important. You ladies collectively, we deal with that all the time. So let's go to Patty Dye. Patty, tell us your thoughts. I mean, you're an educator. You've been in teaching for 31 years. You have seen children from all types of families, ethnic groups, financial status, and some insight. How did you help those children? And then you can use that maybe from your experience in teaching students inside your school.
Right. Well, first of all, we understand that every person, man, woman, child, is an individual and unique in their own way and special in their own way. And they all have needs. We all have needs. But we also have to find out what their goals are. So if they're coming to learn the martial arts, first of all, why are you here? Has there been a traumatic event? Are you being bullied at school? Are you a victim of abuse? Are you just in it for the exercise? What is their purpose and what is their goal? And then we have to let them know that we are there to help accommodate them and help them get to whatever goal that they desire. And along the way, we have to be compassionate, we have to be patient, we have to let them know that we're there for them, not just on the mat, but off the mat as well. And we have to help them overcome any weaknesses, to strengthen the things that they're already good at. Whatever they're struggling with, we're there to help them along. And we have had a lot of women who have come through, and one of the things that happens with the women is they end up with boyfriends who would like some more of their time, and we would encourage them to bring the boyfriend. So you are still with them, and also they can see what's going on. Sometimes people couldn't come because they didn't have anybody to watch their children. We encouraged them to bring the children. That's what we did when our children were growing up. They came with us. And so it's just all about that special individual and what we can do for them and what are their needs and goals and how can we impact their lives in a positive way.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to ask you a question about you personally. Many years ago, you discovered you had an issue with drinking soda.
Oh.
Okay. You finally you're so good at identifying problems for other people, but you couldn't understand what was happening to you. My mother battled cancer her life. My grandfather battled cancer, 17 surgeries. They didn't think he would ever live. He lived to be 77. I think the mindset is one of the most important things that we have to address in our training. Frank Trejo told me once, there are two battles in your life. There's the one in your mind and there's the one in the ring. If you're not prepared in your mind, you will be destroyed in the ring. Obviously, the metaphor is life. Why don't you share with our viewers your personal challenge and how you overcame that?
Well, that particular incident, I wasn't even sure. I didn't even know you knew about that. I had been
Patty,
sick.
I know a lot of things.
Careful now. I had been ill for quite some time. I had been going back and forth to the doctors trying to find out what the heck was wrong with me. I constantly felt nauseous. I would have this rush come over me. And of course, people would tell me, oh, you're just going through the phase of life, menopause, and that was it. Every time I walked, my kidneys hurt. When I got in a car, I just wanted to throw up. I knew that there was something wrong with me, and the doctors couldn't find anything out. A friend of mine happened to read an article about aspartame and shared that with me, and all the symptoms that I had were the symptoms of aspartame poisoning. And so I just quit drinking diet sodas And within 2 weeks, I started feeling better. And you have to realize I had this for over a year. I had a headache so severe every day that I wanted to go to bed so that I wouldn't feel that pain. And within 2 weeks, I started feeling better. And after a month, I didn't have any single symptoms. And I had said previously to my husband, Paul, do you think that I'm crazy? Because it got to the point where the doctors thought that there was nothing wrong with me and it was all in my head. But I realized it wasn't once I immediately saw results. And then when I ended up with cancer twice, I realized that the doctors can do their medical thing that they need to do, you know, chemotherapy, surgery, all of those. But I had to stay strong, and I had to have faith, and I had to lean on the support of my family and let them surround me and my friends, and just do what I could and just keep a strong mind and a strong will to get through it day to day.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for asking.
Well, you have a wonderful smile, and we're happy you can be here with us, share. Let's go to Kellie. Kellie Foster. Let's talk about training in Kempo. Mr. Parker divided Kempo into 3 divisions: the basics, self-defense, and freestyle. Tell us your interpretation of that, and how much time do you spend on each facet?
Well, I think basics are the foundation to our martial arts. So I think basics is the #1 thing. Without good basics, you pretty much, I don't know, can't get too far in Kempo. So you need to always have a good foundation before you can move on to the next. And then I think fighting is it's a big asset in karate. I mean, that's the whole purpose, is to know how to fight to defend yourself. So I think sparring is a huge ordeal in Kempo. And self-defense, obviously, in Mr. Dice Garage, we're big self-defense people and tournament people in self-defense. So that's probably like my biggest passion in Kempo karate, is doing the self-defense routines. So
break down the basics for us. How do you teach a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced student?
Well, obviously, if somebody walks in the front door and it's their first day, obviously, you know, the first thing I teach them is the basics, like the horse stance or right neutral bow, something like that. And then as they, you know, get through the ranks, obviously you have your orange belt program where it's a little more defined. You know, you start going into forms or a few techniques here and there. And then obviously advanced, you have the whole Kempo program where we're teaching them, you know, basics all the way through forms, all the way through fighting, you know, all the techniques Mr. Parker has for us. So it just, don't know much what to say.
No, you're doing just fine, dear. I'm just trying to keep it simple for us right now, because I remember many times being asked those same questions. So I'm asking you because you're going to be asked that by a new student, or you may have a student that comes in that's trained with somebody else. How do you deal with another student from another instructor?
Well, obviously, I allow them to show me what their other instructor has taught them. I mean, always there's a million different ways to do something. And then I obviously say, oh, well, I really enjoy that way that you're doing, or I like that way you're doing it, but this is the way we do it here. So let's try both ways and, you know, see what works best for you. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Barbara.
Yes.
Focus on basics, one of your greatest strengths.
Yes. Well, actually, I start right at the beginning with basics, and every class, I don't care what rank they are, we still go back to basics each and every time, because as I said earlier today, you know, what I'm a believer in basics because what basics have done for me. And, you know, the terminology, the weight distribution, the toe-heel relationship, the benefits that you get from basics, I make sure I plant that as the message. And every single class I start out is the Chinese box drill, whether I'm teaching a student of higher rank or whether I'm teaching somebody from the beginning, I begin that process of learning the basics and learning them correctly. Even with the beginning students, your minor move for your outward block, just to begin the process of that, I guess you could say muscle memory, even though I understand muscles don't have memories, but anyway, that's the same type of, I try to start that from the beginning.
Is the Chinese boxing drill that you have, was that something created by Mr. White, or is that something you originated?
No, I didn't create that at all. And I don't know, maybe my husband created it. It's just that we, do you know what the Chinese box drill is?
No, that's why I'm asking you. Explain it to us.
So the Chinese box drill is just a series of movements. Like you start out with in a horse stance, slide forward to your left neutral bow, slide forward to your right neutral bow, forward to your horse stance, back to your left neutral bow, back to your right neutral bow, back to your horse stance, and so on, and put variations of that box drill in which you are doing the crescent step each time. You are sliding forward. You've got your toe heel relationship. It's kind of the way to warm up, to get your, not only your foot patterns, your basics or your movement down, but also to kind of get into your mind that you're here studying karate. It's kind of like a mental and a physical warm up.
I see. Mr. Parker wrote many books on many different subjects. Infinite Insights. Are you aware of those books?
Yes, I've read them. My favorites are number 1 and number 5.
Oh, good. Let's go to number 1 for a second then.
Okay.
Mr. Parker he broke down the basics, broke them into basically 8 considerations. Do you remember what those are? If not, I can repeat them.
Okay, repeat them.
Okay. First one he talked about was stances. And then he went and enumerated the rest from 2 all the way down to 7, being blocks, parries, punches, strikes, finger techniques, kicks. And then the last thing he had was foot maneuvers. However, when he went to book 2 and 3, he taught stances and foot maneuvers. Is that where you like to focus?
Well, you mean as opposed to strikes and punches and things like that?
Yeah, I'm looking at your foundation, because what you just told us in your Chinese box drill was strength of your footwork, your stances, because it is something you don't want to be thinking about when you're in combat.
Well, part of the Chinese box drill is also forward bow punches, reverse bows, cat stances, one-legged stance. So that all is incorporated into the box drill.
I see. Let's go over and see what Kellie, let's talk about you, Kellie. Let's go over here and talk to you. You said you like self-defense techniques. Is that the one that you favor the most, or do you like to spend more time on fighting? What do you like to focus in on?
So I do like the sparring aspect of Kempo, I do, but I definitely am into the self-defense techniques. So I just like the whole having the group together and choreographing a routine to perform in. So that's definitely my favorite. And obviously, you know, our self-defense techniques are kind of just like a blended of, I don't know. So yeah, definitely the self-defense techniques are my favorite.
Let's break it down. You do like to spend some time with the sparring, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you give us your interpretation of freestyle?
My interpretation of freestyle.
How do you define it?
How do I find it? 2 people on the mat together, pretty much doing point sparring, kind of like a game of tag to see who gets, you know, the most points before the time limit's up and who wins. So
the reason I bring that up is because I remember one time Mr. Parker was defining it, and there is one person by themselves, and then there are 2 people, and then there's multiple people. And he defined the first one is sort of like shadow boxing, okay, where you're just exercising an imaginary fight. There is no other opponent. The second one, with an individual, there was no contact. And that was one of the drills that I worked with Frank, where we just would take our arms, cross them, and just do foot maneuvers, sort of like shadow boxing, but no contact, and just seeing if angles and foot maneuvers could come into play. The other three were easy: light contact, medium contact, which you would see in maybe in a tournament, and then full contact, which was sort of no bar, hold right there, and then finally street fighting. And our system was premised on multiple attackers. Do you address any of these principles with your students? Do you ever work on drills like that to further their education in Kempo?
Oh yeah, of course we do. And obviously we tell them the different stages like you just said. And obviously we're not going to just take a new student and throw them out on the mat. I mean, we're going to walk them through each stages, and obviously maybe one-on-one practicing with them or going over drills to get them ready to step on the mat with an opponent. And then as they get more comfortable, obviously we put them up against somebody, you know, that we know is going to work easy with them, and it's not going to just get up there and demolish them at that time. And then as they get the confidence to get out there and compete against other kids, then you kind of just push them and encourage them to get out there and just have a good time, most of all. So I know it's hard to get hit. You know, everybody gets hit and doesn't like it at first, but I think as you teach them and show them that it's okay, and how to deal with getting hit and the appropriate techniques to use against it, that they get more confidence to be able to become better fighters.
Sadly, Frank Trejo, the analogy of learning how to swim, just threw you out on the mat and you had to fend for yourself. Let's go to Patty Dye. Patty, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you're in your school, you're teaching students. How do you address that aspect of sparring with your students and how to get the most out of them? Because we both know, as just Kelly said, nobody wants to get hit, but you want to make sure they do get hit. You just don't want them to get injured, because if they get injured, they're going to leave. And that defeats the whole purpose of them being there. So how do you address that?
Well, first of all, we don't just throw them out together and have them sparring. It's like your basics, like the techniques. You actually have to do some drills to get the student used to seeing the punches and the kicks come in. They have to process what's happening. They have to be able to read body language. And then they have to work on the processing speed so that they can perceive what's happening. So we'll do that for a while. You know, you'll do drills where it'll be no contact. And then eventually you'll start doing light contact and you'll get them comfortable. You have to have them, in order for them to learn, we have to have them comfortable, and then we have to move them out of their comfort zone, give them a little bit more anxiety, put them a little bit more on alert, but we don't just throw them out there. We let them get comfortable enough with themselves, get some skills under their belt, learn to process. We teach them to read body language. If we just throw them out there, it's panic. And we want them to understand what's happening to them, to look at their angles, to look at the movements that their attacker makes, and so on. So that's what we do. It's a step-by-step process that leads up to the sparring and getting them more comfortable, and then multiple attackers, and then, you know, Mr. Dye used to turn the lights off and turn the lights off and on, and just get people to be more aware of their surroundings when we do that as well. So
okay, your school is known from your husband as one of the premier demonstration schools of Kempo, being selected to perform at many well-known karate demonstrations, tournaments, exhibitions. What's it like to get your students prepared for public competition or display?
well, first of all, that never happened on our own. It was because people had invited us. It's nothing that we intentionally started out doing. But in order to do that, we have to stop and talk about what is the event? What is the purpose for this? What do we think they want to see? And then we will just discuss as a group what we think should be done, who we think the audience is. Is it going to be more geared to children? Do we want to add a little humor in it? Is it, more geared to people who are sparring and fighting, or someone who's never seen Kenpo? And then just practicing, working, having different people sit at different angles to see what it looks like, and have honest and open feedback and critiquing.
Do you give input from your perspective, not as a martial artist, but sometimes as a woman? I hate to use that. I don't want to be gender here, but you are a woman and you're a very important one. And you might want to make sure that that is not overshadowed or forgotten. Can you talk about that?
I do give feedback. I've always given feedback, even at times when I had, I was spending less time training and more time studying for school. I was always there, and I was always giving feedback when asked, because you don't have to be a martial artist to either understand that you don't know what's going on by what you're looking at, because not always are demonstrations given to martial artists. They're given to people off the street and people that don't have that experience. And you want to make sure that the lay person can understand what's happening, what the attacks might be, hopefully get them to visualize what's happening and why the person performing is doing what he or she is doing. So I've always been asked to give input from the get-go.
Thank you. Kellie, let's talk about competition. You compete, or you've participated in several of Mr. Dye's, I would think, his presentations, demonstrations, or you've done also that. What is that like to prepare yourself for those events?
Usually we are training, usually I train about 5 days a week when I'm getting ready for a tournament or an event. And usually we have, Mrs. Dye or Mr. Dye kind of critiquing us on our techniques or our forms to help us really improve on what we're doing. And I don't know, I've been competing for so many years since I was a little kid. So it just depends on the tournament and what I'm competing for. But as far as demos goes, usually we get together a few times and Mr. Dye puts together kind of a baseline of what we're going to do. And then we usually come up with a few techniques, each person, and then we choreograph them with each other and put them together. And then Mr. Dye will kind of go over it and make sure what we're doing is appropriate or the right way. And then we get out there and perform. So that's pretty much what we do.
I asked the question to Mrs. Dye about the input from a woman's perspective. Do you ever get to put some input in? And
oh yeah, for sure. Mr. Dye always listens to what each and one of us want to do. And we're pretty much encouraged to create our own techniques in the garage and then put something together and go out there and perform. But yeah, well, as in a woman's perspective, I mean, I've never looked at myself any differently than the guys. So, I mean, we perform and we get out there on the mat and do just what all the other guys do. So I don't see myself different from that,
Do you ever have young girls come up to you and say, gosh, you're so good, I want to be like you?
A couple of times I have, but I tell them, just be you, do the best you can. And, if your thing is doing tournaments, get out there and do tournaments. If yours is, teaching, teach, but everybody's unique in their own way. And they're just as, they're good just being them. So you don't want to be me. You want to be yourself and the best you can be for yourself.
Thank you. Mrs. White.
Yes.
What's it like to compete in a tournament in the female divisions?
Very scary.
For them or for you?
No, for me. No,
For us too.
honestly, because the only competition that I had, really, actually none growing up. My parents didn't really put us in anything that was sports related. So I didn't get that opportunity to experience what it's like to compete and being on a team. only until I got to college, when I was on the women's swim team at college, was my one and only experience to compete. So when I started doing tournaments, I was scared to death. But, you know, that's just another way of getting out of your comfort zone. I needed to do that for myself. And I really enjoyed myself. I love sparring.
We've seen the videos. You're very good at them.
Thank you.
Tell us about the best experience in competition for you. And it doesn't have to be specifically, let me qualify. It can be, let's tell us about your personal experience and maybe what you experienced from observation.
Okay, my personal experience, I can tell you this: when I was a black belt, and I decided just sort of on an, I hate to say impulse, because I told you I never do anything on impulse, but I kind of did for this particular tournament. And anyway, so our time was up, and I had absolutely no idea that I was sparring with somebody who was a regular tournament competitor. And so I had the fortunate luck to be able to win that tournament, and it validated me, you know, somebody who hasn't done a lot of sparring, you know, a lot of younger years sparring. It really validated me that I could accomplish something like that.
Thing that you've observed at a tournament that just left a mark on you in a positive way?
You know, I think watching kids, really, you know, our tournament, you know, for royal families, and it's a kids tournament, and just seeing these little peewees in their white uniforms and going out and getting out in the ring and sparring, they're just such great memories, because they're so you know, just, they're all out there. You know, there's no emotion hidden, and it's just a wonderful thing to see the elation when they've made a point or when they've won the tournament.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's go to a whole different subject. How has Kenpo changed your life?
Huge. It's changed my life in ways I can hardly express. It's given me a part of myself I never knew that I had. And it's given me the freedom to be myself. And you know, you can ask my husband, I'm my own worst enemy in many ways, because I have, you know, a lot of chatter going on in my brain that isn't probably the most positive chatter. But I'll tell you, Kenpo's allowed me to have confidence, more confidence in myself than I ever have in my life. And it's, of course, I've said before, it blessed me with the most wonderful husband in the world. But it has given me an insight to who I am and who I could be.
You're a nurse. You're constantly helping people. You're hoping to give them inspiration that it's going to be okay. You try to heal them with your words and obviously your knowledge as an expert in the medical profession in maybe a dire circumstance. Is that conflicting with your study of the martial arts?
Oh, no, not at all.
Well, then draw a comparison and also draw the how the two are separate, but they can exist in the same space.
Okay. A patient going through trauma, going through a cancer diagnosis, for instance, say my husband, for instance, or my daughter when she was 9. It takes a lot of courage to face those uncertainties in life, and you need hope. I think if I'm understanding the question that you're asking correctly, it takes a lot of courage to face some of the obstacles that you have in your own journey in Kenpo, whether it's self-imposed or not, and to have hope. So I don't think that there's any, I think it's the same.
Okay.
Am I understanding your question right?
Well, there is a sort of a dichotomy there. You have, in one hand, you're trying to heal or help somebody, and the other side, you're trying to kick their ass. So I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay. Sorry to be so
okay.
blunt there, folks.
Got it. Got it.
I will
Okay.
edit that out,
I
even
get
though
it.
you're allowed to do that. So somebody's trying to hurt you. So that's not helpful. So that's what I'm trying to say.
No, if someone's really trying to hurt you, you have to do everything in your power to defend yourself. It's the bottom line. If cancer is trying to hurt you, you've got to do everything in your power to defend yourself against that or other trauma.
There is no negotiation with cancer. I know this well with
Yes.
several of my family members that fought it. You know, I was asked this the other day, and I said, listen, you need to be optimistic. You need to look for a positive solution. It is easy to say no. It is easy to give up. It is much better to find a positive result, to be optimistic, and to understand that today is a great day for you, because death awaits us all. I'm sorry to say that. I'm troubled with that because every day I'm reminded of that when I miss somebody. But I focus mostly on the good things that I had. So let's go to Kellie. Kellie Foster, tell us about how Kenpo has changed you.
How Kempo has changed me. Well, you know, as a young kid, I was extremely shy, which you can kind of tell I'm still pretty shy now. So it helped me get a.
No,
it's
you're
helped me
not.
get
You're
a.
sweet. Go ahead.
It definitely helped me get a voice in life, and actually, it helped me be a part of something growing up in a positive place I could go to outside of the home. So, and most of all, Kempo is my family. So I've got to meet so many wonderful people through Kempo and been able to travel and meet people in other countries. And so the whole experience of Kempo is what has molded me to be the person I am today. So if I didn't have Kempo in my life, I'm not really sure where I would have been or what my path would have been. So, you know, Kempo was a positive place for me to be when my sister was sick with cancer. Kempo was a positive place for me to be when my daughter passed away. And I had the support of my Kempo family there to back me up, to get me through those hard days. So Kempo has been nothing but positive in my life. And I now would like to give back to Kempo by teaching and spreading Mr. Parker's system, you know, and through camps or women's symposium or, you know, whatever we can do to give back, because now it's my time to give back. Kempo has given me so much. Now it's my time to give back to Kempo.
Thank you. You're a beautiful soul, and it resonates easily by your words and your demeanor with us. And we're grateful that you did continue on that path, and you are a part of the Hall of Fame. You are truly a great example of that. Patty Dye.
Yes, sir.
How has Kempo changed you?
Oh gosh, there's so many similarities. First of all, it's given me the understanding that I can do more than I thought I could. I've mentioned this before, never in my life would I have walked by and looked at a karate school and have been in the slightest bit interested. So Kenpo opened up a world I never thought I'd be participating in, something like that. It's always out of my comfort zone. I started off saying, wait a minute, I'm a hugger, not a hitter. What's this all about? But it's made me realize that I can take who I am and learn this art and challenge myself to do things I never thought I could. But most importantly, it's really opened up the world to meeting other people. Like Kellie said, traveling, realizing that you have the opportunity to affect somebody else's life in a positive way, to guide them, to impact their life in some way that's positive. And also, it comes to the point where it's not what you can get from Kenpo, it's what you can give back and what you can do to help other people and improve their quality of life. and just do for others, because that's what life is all about. It's about giving back and helping others in any way you can. And Kenpo gives me the opportunity to do that because it's a great big family out there working together on the same goal.
Thank you. Ladies, we are going to open up the microphone to our viewers. So for those of you that are out there, I'm going to call your names. And when I do, I appreciate, ask them a question related to their participation in Kenpo from a woman's perspective. I guarantee they don't kick like a girl, nor do they hit like a girl. They'll knock you on your butt with their words because they are true champions. So let's go down the line. Let's go to Nicole. Nicole, are you there? Are you there, Nicole?
I'm here.
Hey, do you have a question for our ladies?
Nope, just good job, Mom.
No question for Mom? I can't believe it. Let's go to Earl Parker. Earl, are you there?
Well, yes, sir.
Oh, do you have a question for Barbara, Kelly, or Patty?
Oh, no, not really. This was listening in. I thought you guys did a great job. And I just wanted to say to Mrs. Dye to thank her for taking me into her Kenpo home with herself, Mr. Dye, and the rest of the gang.
It's a pleasure, Earl. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Earl. Let's go to, this will be a good one. Okay. Are you there, Mr. Sullivan? Chuck Sullivan.
Ladies.
Senior Master of the Arts, Chuck Sullivan. What is your questions for Barbara, Kelly, and Patty, or comments?
No, in common, just the three of you ladies. I've always wondered, when I teach women, I tell them straight out, you're not going to hit like a woman. I'm going to teach you to hit like a guy. And until you can hurt me, it isn't over. So how do you prepare yourself? This has got to be tough on you ladies. I mean, I have no idea myself what it takes to prepare yourself to know that most of your fights aren't going to be with other women. Most of your fights are going to be with some other guy. I mean, that's life. Women don't usually pick on women, but guys do. And you're going to have to fight like a guy. How do you do that, ladies?
Barbara, you go first. Kelly, you go second. Patty, you go third.
Okay. Honestly, I think that when a woman, if she is starting to fight, needing to fight for her life, a woman is pretty vicious. And in my, self-defense classes that I teach, I basically teach you have to do whatever it takes to defend yourself, no matter what. Whether it's gouging out the eyes, whether it's biting, it's not a tournament out in the streets. And as a woman preparing myself, I go out and spar and I hit. And I can tell you that the act of hitting, at least what I've seen in my women's empowerment classes and with me, is an act of empowerment. And you've got to prepare our students of the fact that this is a self-defense system and we may need to learn to defend ourselves, and we have to have the mindset that we will do whatever it takes to defend ourselves or our loved ones. And not me, not today, as Steve Labounty would say.
Kelly, your response.
Well, I'm with Mrs. White on this one. I think we teach the women that you have to be able to go, well, you have to ask yourself, how far are you willing to go on the street? So are you willing to gouge somebody's eyes out? Are you willing to, take out their groin? So you have to be prepared for that, because obviously, yes, we aren't as strong as men, but you also need to train, and hopefully somebody that attacks you on the street, we have more skills than them. So I believe the more skills we have, the better chance we have of surviving out on the street. So, and obviously staying in shape, working out, always learning new skills every day, I think will help if you ever end up on that situation.
May I add something real quick?
Yes, you can.
Women have what's called the element of surprise, because men don't think that we're going to fight back.
Yeah.
And so we have that in our favor, the element of surprise.
Patty, your thoughts?
First of all, I wanted to say something to Mr. Sullivan. I love the fact that right from the get-go, you say you're going to hit like a man. So right away, you've let the students know you have high expectations, and then they're aiming for that goal. I also agree that women have the element of surprise, but I think oftentimes a man might have more warning that there is an altercation because there might be two men, you know, having a disagreement. And so it might be a little bit more visible in terms of at least you know that there's some verbal confrontation or that there's some animosity between the two. Where a woman can often be surprised, somebody grabbing her from an off angle or from behind her or something. But I also agree, you know, you have to, you know when somebody is serious, you'll know when somebody's serious, and then you have to have all that training kick in and give everything you can. And I think that's where the basics will help. If you have that foundation, hopefully when something like that happens to you, you're going to be able to execute in the best way possible so that if it's you or that person, you've at least given it everything you have, and you know, bite, kick, scratch, whatever you need to do to survive.
I think, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. If you ever hang out with Mr. Sullivan any bit or take a seminar or just a verbal lesson with him, you know, the anatomical targets that Ed Parker set up do not take great strength, my friends, at all. It just takes precision. And if you use the focus target method, which he had both the small black dot or the white dot, you have to understand that if you strike correctly in the areas that are most vulnerable for a man, which he doesn't expect you're going to do, you're going to hurt him. And that might be just the amount of time you need to move on. My friend from Florida who runs a school down there, Cynthia Graham. How are you doing, Cindy?
Hello, ladies.
Cindy.
Hello.
Say hello to Patty, Kelly, and Barbara.
Hello, beautiful ladies. It is such a pleasure to meet you guys.
Pleasure meeting you.
Yes.
Cindy, why don't you tell them a little bit what you do down in Florida?
Well, I basically run my school. I've had my school for over 25 years. It's, you know, it's my husband. You know, Kenpo is definitely my husband. And I have learned so much from it. And Mr. Parker gave me so many gifts. And I just wanted to grow up and be like him. So I have my school, and I do all my teaching, and I do my daycares, and I do my women's self-defense and my Zumba. And, you know, I'm just a jack of all trades. You know what I'm saying, ladies? You know? Mm-hmm. Basically, I did also have cancer. So my ladies who had cancer, God bless you. And Kenpo did help us get through it, definitely. And doctors have definitely told me that I was wonderful because of it. So I really appreciate you saying that. And I understand where you're coming from, because it's hard. It's really hard when the world from the outside battles you, but when your own body betrays you and battles you from inside, that's one hell of a war.
You know, Patty earlier talked about the mindset that she had to overcome because she doubted herself. She wasn't sure why she was sick. She thought they would think she was crazy. Patty overcame that because she never doubted herself. What is your suggestion, Barbara or Kelly, to Cynthia about these battles that she's dealing with right now?
You gotta just believe in yourself. I have faith in the Lord, and that gives me a great source of strength, is my faith.
Yes, definitely.
That's number one.
There's nothing without him. And, you know, I mean, people come up and tell me, how can you believe in God if you teach all this violence? I'm not teaching violence. I'm teaching defending the good. I'm teaching against all this evil. And, you know, I mean, we have these riots now, and it's really, really not against color. It's about evil. All it is. You know, people are just so hung up on the outside. They're not understanding the inside. And I'm trying to help here in Florida with human trafficking, trying to help our teenagers understand, you know, you need to open your eyes, and you cannot believe everything on the outside. You have to just, you can't change anybody. You have to believe in yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you ladies, if you don't mind answering it, of course. I'm an attack victim, and that's why I started my karate. I was attacked by 2 men in a McDonald's, and I was beaten very badly. And I originally came from New York, and I had a Kempo, he wasn't a Kempoist at the time, but he was a martial artist. He said, you should take karate. And I said, I don't need it. I'm from New York. Well, I learned. And I immediately started training. And that's where we started going into Kempo, actually. Have any ladies been in really bad altercations outside?
We'll start with Patty. Patty Dye, what's your response?
I have actually never been physically attacked. There was one incident where somebody went to attack me, and yes, my husband intervened, and the rest of that is history. But there was another opportunity. There was opportunity for me to learn. I learned that when two gentlemen went to attack me, part of it was because of things that I said. So for example, it was years ago when they had stores closed because there was a meat strike, and I attempted to go into the store, and the door didn't open, and these two men who were hanging out by their car near the store door said to me, hey, what's the matter, baby? Can't you read? It says, 9 to 5. And my first mistake was I said, yeah, I can read. So I learned that wasn't a good idea. I shouldn't have said anything, but I got lucky. I think there was somebody watching over me, because just as the men said, let's get her, and went to get me, a car had screeched into the parking lot. And I later on learned that was an undercover car, and they had been looking for these men. And
Wow.
Subsequently, later on, AC was living with us. AC Rainey, for those of you who know him, he was living with us at the time. And when I went home, AC and Paul and I went out to see who these men were, and they were being arrested at the time. But I learned something really important, and that was that I need to just shut my mouth and not say anything. And I thought that in responding to them, they wouldn't get angry, but I just angered them, I think, even more. So I've been very fortunate. And like I say, somebody was watching over me that night. And so fortunately, nothing else has happened to me. And I'm very grateful and blessed for that.
Amen.
Barbara, how about you, Barbara?
I've never been in an altercation, and I thank God that I haven't. And my heart goes out to you, ladies, and all the ladies out there that have. I hope that it never happens. I leave the home hoping, accepting the fact that it could happen. And if it does happen, I'll do everything within myself to protect myself or my
Kelly? Kelly, any thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, I did have a situation where I was in a relationship, and the person was very angry and decided that he was going to pick me up by the throat and throw me up against the wall. So with that, I stayed very calm and tried to calm the situation down. And obviously, I could have done several techniques on him, but I didn't want to, make the situation worse. And I did get away from the choke and walked away. But I mean, that was probably, after that, as a female, a lot of females deal with, abuse from a relationship or a partner, and it's sad. So I encourage girls always to, sorry, it chokes me up a little bit, to always, if something like that is happening, to make sure you leave that relationship, because you don't want to be involved in something like that.
Thank you, Cynthia. We appreciate your questions, and more importantly, ladies, thank you for sharing personal sides of your life that is not always pleasant. The one thing I could never comprehend is how anyone, the violent act of rape, or honestly, that would be something that we don't want to talk about right now. It would truly bother me. Let's talk to Jennifer Anderson. Hello, Jennifer. unmute yourself and say something. Hello, say hello to Barbara, Kelly, and Patty.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So I came up with a question. I think it pertains to all of you. How do you guys like teaching family?
I can answer that. I love teaching family. Right there, Jennifer Anderson is our daughter, and then Matthew is our grandson. And Jennifer trained for a while and competed and actually won first place self-defense on the same day her dad did. Got a trophy that was bigger than her. And our youngest daughter, Lisa, she would spar, and it was fun to watch her. And Matthew right now is one of the instructors and doing a fine job. And that's part of the pride that I have in being in Kempo, is having family be a part of it and being able to share that journey with my family and traveling with them and just seeing them grow.
Thank you, Patty. Barbara, what's it like to teach Bob?
That's funny. As far as Bob and I come from a blended family. He's got 4 daughters. I've got 2 daughters. My daughter Sydney got up to her green belt. In fact, she helped out with the karate program at camp, a Royal Family Kids Camp, while she couldn't until she left for college and everything. But I've had the great pleasure of being able to be a part of Aaliyah, Bob's daughter's test. In fact, I was in her black belt test, and I got a chance to, and I trained with her as well as she's preparing for her black belt. And it was a great honor. It was very fun, and that was my connection with family at that time, and it's great.
Kelly, have you ever taught anybody that's a family member?
I've had the privilege of teaching my stepdaughter. She made it to orange, and that was a lot of fun. And then obviously my nephew made it to yellow. And, you know, one of my favorite memories was teaching him his self-defense routine for Mr. and Mrs. White's tournament, and just seeing the sheer joy on his face when he competed. So I really enjoy teaching family members. Now the husband, that's a different story. That's a hard one because they have more opinions than the kids.
Do we need to go there with the hand-to-hand combat? Let's go to Vishal. How you doing, buddy? Take off that mute. It's time for you to be asking the question.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Well, first, Mrs. Dye and Ms. Foster, it's great to see you guys. Certainly missed seeing you in March at our event. Question for all 3 of the ladies is, what are some of the unconscious biases that you see where people say or do things that they may not even realize, and they certainly don't have a bad intent, but it could come off as patronizing to you as a woman and treating you differently?
Let's go with Kelly on that one. Kelly, you're first.
Oh man, put me on the spot.
You're on the spot, dear.
You know, I've really never had to deal with that. I think the people that I've ran into have been very supportive of me doing martial arts. And most of the time, like if it's somebody who I've just met, I never even really tell them I'm into the martial arts. It takes me a long time before I tell them what I do. But as far as people in Kempo, I've really never had that situation. All the men that I've been around in Kempo have been 100% supportive. So I don't really have an answer for you on that one.
Patty, what is your thoughts?
For the most part, everyone's been supportive. There have been some people that have said it doesn't look good for a woman to get hurt and to get hit. But if I'm trying to defend myself, and that's an ultimate goal, I need to be hit. I need to go through that experience so that I don't hopefully fall apart when my life is on the line. And so there's that bias that a woman shouldn't be hit and a woman should be treated like that. But for the most part, everybody's been respectful and understanding. And I think the women before us paved a great path to get us to that point.
Yeah.
Barbara, what's your answer for your training partner?
You know, there's a lot of answers that could be with that question. Thanks for asking it, Vishal. As I said at the couple of weeks, the first town hall meeting, it has been some years, quite a while since that white stripe was required for women to wear it down their belt. Women have come a long way since then, but I think they've got a long ways to go as far as recognition is concerned. And I appreciate you having us on here and recognizing us in the Hall of Fame. As far as an incident that I might as well bring up, when I tore my ACL, it has nothing to do with the martial artist. When I tore my ACL, I went into the surgeon thinking that I was going to be getting surgery for my ACL, and I explained that I was in Kenpo and I was a teacher in Kenpo, and this is my profession. And the response that he gave to me was maybe I should just stop playing Kenpo or playing karate. And the way I took that was that he didn't take me seriously. Maybe a man in my shoes, if they had said that my career is karate, I need to have my knee, I'd like to see about whether I should have surgery on my knee. They may have taken it a little bit more seriously. But because I was a middle-aged woman, just to stop playing karate. So.
Vishal, thank you very much. Let's go to Ruben. One of my favorite guys from Pasadena. Hey, Ruben. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm very good. You have a question or a comment for Barbara, Kelly, or Patty?
Yes, I do. First of all, ladies, congratulations on your accomplishments. Good job.
Thank
and
you.
Barbara, thank
Yes.
you for being a nurse. You have a special place in my heart.
Prophetess.
Thank you.
One question I have: most studios don't have the privilege of having women teaching. What advice will you give a male instructor on how to teach or maintain women positive in the art when there's no women there yet, like brown or black belts? That's number one. And number two, was it easier to teach or learn karate as a woman years ago? Because I used to have a karate studio 30 years ago, and now.
We'll go with, let's start off with Kelly. Thank you, Ruben. It's so good to see you. Ruben's one of my favorite guys. I've known him when he was a little boy in Pasadena. He's not liking me saying that either. That just says I'm old. Anyway,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome, Ruben.
Well, I would say encouragement, 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 and don't let them fade off in the background, especially if you don't have that many girls. Throw them up on the front, encourage them, tell them that they're doing a good job, and maybe even have them help you teach, the children's class or something that they're comfortable with, so they get those confidence so they can become leaders in Kenpo. So that's kind of the path I would take. And then what was the second part of the question?
Difference between when you first started to now.
Well, I was very young when I first started. So, I didn't really see any difference. And I was a tomboy growing up. So I just jumped in there and fought with the guys and did techniques and didn't really even see any difference growing up. And now I think that, with Mrs. White putting on the women's symposium and really helping women get the recognition that they deserve, I see a difference of recognition for people. And as far as training goes, I just try to go in there with as much confidence as I can. And I mean, we earned our black belts for a reason. We put in our time and dedication, just like all of the males in martial arts. And we have just as much knowledge as they do, and we should be able to stand up there and teach just as well as they do. So,
Patty, your idea, your thoughts?
I think Kelly did a great job in responding to that. Thanks for the question, Ruben. When I first started Kenpo, women instructors that they did have, you would hear some mumbling in the background from men saying, oh, what's this woman going to be able to teach me? And like I said before, it's the women before us that ended up earning their respect based on what they were able to do, not only on the mat, but who they were off the mat. But I would say, you know, I was taught by my husband. So my husband, poor guy, ended up having to teach me. And we are all individual. And I was very self-doubting, and he was very patient. So I would say patience is very good. I would learn in a different pace than other people, and he was very patient with that. And, you know, because I was nitpicky with myself, and he understood that. So I think learning who your students are and realizing what boundaries they have, I think that respect between you and the student, whether it's male or female, is going to go a long way.
Barbara, your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you, Patty and Kelly just nailed it. You guys just really did. As far as the girls in the studio that aren't higher ranks, just encourage them to not quit. Give them positions of leadership in some way in which they can be examples and lead a little bit. And as far as the difference in 29 years ago is what I have to say till now, I see that there's a lot more women in Kenpo now than there ever used to be. And I think that's a real positive thing. A lot of our classes is full of girls, and we have a lot of women in the studio. And I think it's a real refreshing thing to see the numbers of women growing in karate.
Thank you. You know, one comment, and I'm going to go to Todd in a second. Patty and Paul have been married for, I think, 47 or 48 years. Am I correct on that, Patty?
It'll be 46. We've been together for about 48 years.
Wonderful.
As far as knowing each other. And he's still my best friend. And there is not a day in my life where he has ever let me down when I've asked him to do anything for me. And you think about, you know, just being married 46 years. He's never, ever once let me down to this day. And I will love him forever. And he's so patient with me and kind and supportive.
Well, Miss Patty.
Okay, let's go over to Todd. Todd Durgan, how you doing, buddy? Step it up here. You got your game. One question, Todd, or one state. You can talk as long as you like.
Well, my wife Christy's here also, who is actually my first female black belt ever that I've had the privilege of raising through the system. She just got her black belt a year ago, I believe. She did a great job at a huge board. So I'm actually going to kind of piggyback on something that Mr. Sullivan asked, which was a great question, and kind of a two-parter. So in having worked with my wife now for a while, it has brought some things to the forefront of my mind with regards to how women have to deal with things differently than men do, regardless of their mental capacity. Anyway, so my question would be, when you're teaching, let's say, for example, women's self-defense, because I've done one now, having had some input from my wife, who, without going into any detail, has in fact had extreme violence put on her by other people in the past, and she's survived that. So anyway, when you're dealing with women's self-defense, for example, what emphasis or percentage of emphasis would you put on, for let's say, environmental awareness or environmental considerations versus the actual physical portion of it, since you only have them for a short period of time, typically with a women's self-defense class, as opposed to having women in your class studying the martial arts?
Kelly, you're first.
Well, when I do a women's self-defense group, obviously I first sit them down and tell them what I'm doing, but I always push surroundings. I always tell them, make sure you park your car where it's, you know, a lighted area. Make sure your keys are always in your hand, ready to go, so you can get into your car quickly or use them as a weapon. I do encourage them to take bear mace with them. And I know that sounds funny, but that stuff works really well. And I always tell them, like, if you see something suspicious, go back inside and ask somebody to walk you out. You know, don't be ashamed of it. Always be prepared. So I mean, obviously in a women's self-defense group, you don't have that much time to go over, you know, point A to point, you know, Z in Kempo karate. So I always teach them maybe hand grabs, a choke, you know, maybe a quick cover to get away. Just things that they can apply to themselves and learn quickly so that they can maybe be a little bit safer on the street.
Barbara, your thoughts?
Yes, a lot of it is mental. I think I like to start out with being very aware of your surroundings, accepting the fact that it could happen, having the attitude you'll do whatever you can if it does happen, and relying on your intuition. And the intuition is a gift. It's telling you that if something is wrong, it is wrong. And I use a lot of Gavin DeBecker's The Gift of Fear. I think it's the best self-defense book that you could have for women. It is. I use his model, the predator. You know, what the predator does. You know, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit nervous, but the self-defense insights that you have if somebody's coming up and he's very charming, for instance, and those aspects from Gavin DeBecker's book. Okay,
let's go, Patty. What are your thoughts?
I think the ladies did a great job. I also think being aware of your surroundings, but also deciding which surroundings you shouldn't be in. For example, the incident I talked about earlier, I shouldn't have put myself in that situation. Although I won't say it was my fault, it was probably 11 o'clock at night. And although the store lights were on, the parking lot had cars in it, it was not a place for me to go. I didn't have to go there that night. I could have picked another time. And also I believe the mental aspect, but also looking around at your surroundings. You know, I taught elementary school for 20 years, and then I taught high school continuation students for 11 years. And even them, including the people that we teach, I tell them to be aware of your surroundings. Don't walk near a car that's parked. Don't walk so close to a bush. If you're going to run away from somebody that's in a car, go the opposite direction. And then again, simple things for, you know, surprise attacks, chokes, things like that. And knowing to stand strong and not give up and apply. You know, you talked about those basics, Paul, and you said something about, you know, what Mr. Sullivan says. But all those little things we work on, believe in yourself enough, you know, to apply those anchored elbows and, you know, those torque skills and things to not give up and have the confidence that if somebody confronts us, use not only ourselves, but are there any other weapons around? We used to have diving weights in drawers in our garage, and we'd use the lawnmower and diving weights and, you know, a pencil or pen, anything that you can to get out of the situation. So environment is huge.
2 points that Todd brings up, and Todd, we're going to have him on as a special guest. Todd is very fluent in Kempo, in the Infinite Insights. One of the things is the 8 considerations of what he was talking about. It's in Mr. Parker's first book about acceptance, environment, range, position, maneuvers, targets, natural weapons, natural defenses, and then the web of knowledge, talking about grabs, push, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be developing in those. The other thing is just watch a John Wick movie and then you learn how to use a pencil. So let's move right on and go down the street down here and see a few more questions for our ladies. Very excited about this. Right off the bat, we're going to go with, if I can see him, there he is, Zach Carter. Say hello to the 3 ladies, Barbara White, Kellie Foster, Patty Dye.
Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your stories today. I just want to show you that book
Oh, there we go.
that Dwight
Thank
was
you.
talking about.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful book for all martial artists to read. I guess if I have a question, what I would like to say, is there a difference when you have a young lady coming in the studio? We all know the physical attributes that are required. Is there a mental Kempo mindset? And is it different from the boys or men that you try to teach?
Let's start with Barbara White. You go, Barbara.
You know, I think that what we talked about earlier is you accept the little girl, the little boy as they are, and you teach them according to who they are. Boys can be just as shy as girls can be when they first join the karate studio. I think you need to earn their trust and show them what they can do so that they are empowered.
Okay, let's go to Patty Dye. What is your thoughts, Patty?
Exactly the same thing, you know. We have to treat everybody as individuals, and we have to be in tune to who they are and take some of the nonverbal communication as guides for us to help them on their way. And, you know, we have a lot of young boys who have come in who've been bullied. And so having to build up self-confidence isn't just for little girls or women, it's for anybody. So I agree with what Barbara said.
Kelly, your thoughts?
I agree with what they both said. I mean, you just, as anybody comes into your martial arts studio, you need to treat them as an individual and help them with their personal needs. So, I mean, a girl could have, you know, I think most girls have the same needs as most of the boys that come in. So it just really depends on, you know, who they are as a person is how you would help them with that. Sorry, I don't really have much to add to that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Let's move on to a couple more people before we wrap this up. And we're going to go to, is AC Rainey out there? AC, are you there? Mr. Rainey. There he is. How you doing, AC? See, say hello to our three ladies. Barbara White, Kellie Foster, Patty Dye.
Oh, okay, I'm waving at you, and I really don't know how to do this because I got it on the phone, so.
You're doing fine, sir. You're doing fine. We can see you.
Okay, good, good.
What's your question for the ladies?
I don't really have a question. I just want to say thank you to all of them, Barbara, Patty, and Miss Foster. You guys are so gracious, and I believe in watching you guys, and I just enjoy being around you. You guys are so gracious.
Thank you.
Lots of love to you. You know that. How I feel about it.
Thank you, AC. Let's go to Mr. Paul Dye. Hello, Paul. How are you doing? Are you there? Or excuse me, Paul and Lisa Dye. There they are. Hello.
We are here. We are here. Thank you.
Look at that, smiles. How you doing, sir? Hello, Lisa.
Doing well. Thanks. You have a question?
No, it's all you.
Okay. So it's not so much a question, Paul. I want to tell them, you know, how fortunate I am to have, you know, Patty and Kelly, you know, as students. I mean, I first met Kelly when she was 12. Just an absolute monster of a martial artist. And then, of course, Mrs. Dye, I've known her, you know, my whole martial arts journey. But I do have a story about Mrs. White I want to share. I think it was 2006. I was put in charge to run the Kempo section of the IKC. And we're about 3/4 of the way through it. And Barbara walks up to me. She's got her, you know, she got the foot pads on. She's got the hand pads on. She's got the mouthpiece in. And I go, what can I do for you? She goes, hey, well, I really don't have any fight. You know, no, there's nobody here for me to fight. Can you set something up? Sure, I'll set something up. So within like 10 minutes, we had a ring of fighters. And of course, Barbara took them all out. Great day. Love her.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's go to our final question. One of my favorite guys, one of the true leaders of Kempo, just a strong individual that has proven and demonstrated through his life, overcoming many obstacles. He's an author, and he's just one of the good guys. Would you please say hello, Mr. Bob White? Mr. White, you are on with our ladies, and we are saying hello. Why don't you say hello to, obviously, Kelly, Patty, and Barbara.
Congratulations to all of you for the recognition that you're getting. You know, my respect for my wife is established, and for you two ladies who I know quite well, the respect is there. My question is, now that you are getting the overdue recognition through the Hall of Fame and Mr. Casey's show here, is it changing the way that you train in Kempo, or is there pretty much everything going to stay the same? And that question is for anybody who wants to respond.
Patty Dye, you're up.
Well, one of the things about, I have to say, receiving the recognition is, first of all, I was overwhelmed, but I was overwhelmed at the positive response that I received from people that have gone before me, who have paved the way, and then people that are, you know, my peers. That in itself was overwhelming. As far as the training goes, I'm retired now. So once this COVID gets over, I'm looking to change my training a little bit. So I'm not quite sure what that means. I just know that I want to be able to do more. And I told Paul, I want to start from the beginning. I want to start over and just go from point A to point Z and retrain and get more involved. And so I'm not sure where that's going to take me, but we'll see how it goes.
Barbara, you're up.
As far as training is concerned, I'll maintain consistency in my training. Bob knows that's something that I really like to do, and I will. As far as my mindset is concerned, I really am excited about this Women's Symposium, and I hope that we have more and more. And I'm excited about the Hall of Fame, so we can have, so we can triple the women that are on the Hall of Fame. That's coming up in November.
Thank you. Kelly, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to pay much respect to you, Mr. White, and you, Mrs. White. Thank you for thinking about me and including me in these things. Mrs. White is the one that actually honored me into the Kempo Hall of Fame. So I really do appreciate that. And I'm just overwhelmed by the love and support that we've had from everyone. It means a lot to me. And the consistency, well, I can't even say it, consistency in my training, I think it's going to stay the same. Obviously, I need to get a little more in shape, but I'm going to continue training each and every day, and hopefully I become a better instructor through all this and a better speaker.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. It is truly an honor to see everybody here. On behalf of the Kempo Karate Hall of Fame, let us all say thank you to the three ladies that have spent some quality time sharing their thoughts in this, and they are truly fit the gold standard of Kempo Karate and Hall of Fame. With so much in mind, God bless y'all. Thank you. Barbara White.
Thank you.
Kellie Foster. Patty Dye. Everybody say hello and goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much,
Thank you
ladies.
so much.
Good job.